The pen felt heavier than it should have. The paper in front of me, the neatly printed words, the cold legal jargon, blurred for a moment. I blinked, refocusing on the bold title at the top. Prenuptial Agreement. Across the table, Ethan, my fiancé of 3 years, tapped his fingers on the polished wood, his face carefully composed. "It's just a precaution, Lori," he said smoothly. "You understand, right? Just in case. Just in case." I forced a smile, though my stomach churned. "Sure, just a backup plan." A backup plan for what exactly? We had been together for 7 years. Through college, through our first broke years in a tiny apartment, through building our lives together. Now, standing on the edge of our future, he was asking me to sign this. This document that made it clear he was planning for a life without me. I picked up the pen. My heart pounded. "Don't be emotional. Be smart." I signed. He exhaled, relieved, and reached for my hand. "Thank you, baby. I knew you'd understand." I just smiled back. Because what Ethan didn't know was that I had already seen his secret savings account. It started 2 weeks earlier. I had never snooped in Ethan's finances before. Why would I? We had always been open with each other. He had access to my accounts, my salary, my investments. We were a team. But that day, while searching for an email on his laptop, a notification popped up. A bank statement, an account I had never seen before. I shouldn't have clicked. I knew it was an invasion of privacy, but something, instinct maybe, pushed me forward. And that's when I saw it. $150,000. In an account with only his name on it. My breath caught. This wasn't from his paycheck. This wasn't from our joint savings. This was hidden. A backup plan. For what? For who? The next few days, I tried to push it from my mind. I wanted to believe there was an innocent explanation. Maybe it was for a surprise honeymoon. Maybe he was saving for something big. But when I casually asked about our savings, he brushed it off. "You handle the money, babe. I don't even look at that stuff." "Lieutenant." He looked me in the eyes and lied. That was when I realized Ethan wasn't just planning for our life together. He was preparing for a life without me. And then, last night, he had dropped the bombshell. "Lori, I need you to sign a prenup. Just something simple." Simple. Just like that, he confirmed my worst fear. Now, as I sat across from him, the ink on the prenup still drying, I forced myself to stay calm. He had a backup plan? Fine. I'd make sure he needed it. The next morning, I woke up with a plan. Ethan thought he had everything under control. He thought the prenup had locked me out of any financial security. But what he didn't realize was that he had just handed me the blueprint to my escape. And I was going to use it. I sat in my car outside the law office, gripping my coffee like a lifeline. The manila folder on the passenger seat contained everything. A copy of the prenup, bank statements, and screenshots of Ethan's secret savings account. I didn't even know what I wanted. Not yet. Revenge? A way out? The truth? All I knew was that I needed answers. The receptionist led me into a sleek, modern office where my lawyer, Mr. Carver, was already waiting. Late 50s, sharp eyes, the kind of man who had seen every possible way a relationship could fall apart. I slid the prenup across the desk. "I need you to explain exactly what this means for me." He skimmed through it, flipping pages with practiced ease. A few minutes later, he leaned back, tapping his pen against the contract. "Well," he said, "let me ask you something, Lori." He met my eyes. "Are you sure he's the only one with a backup plan?" My pulse quickened. "What do you mean?" He smirked. "Your fiancé made one critical mistake. He wrote this prenup himself. Or at least, he drafted it without the expertise of someone who truly knows what they're doing. That's what happens when men think they're smarter than they are." He flipped to a specific clause, tapping it with his pen. "This contract is heavily in his favor, yes. If you divorce, you walk away with only what's in your personal bank account. No access to his money, his assets, nothing." I swallowed hard. I already knew that part. But, Carver continued, he forgot to protect his hidden savings. I blinked. What? Look here. He pointed at the section regarding separate assets. In an airtight prenup, he would have disclosed all his accounts, assets, and properties up front. That's standard. But in this case, Ethan only listed the joint assets and his primary checking account. Realization hit me like a freight train. He had never disclosed the hidden account, which meant legally. Carver grinned. If that money was earned during your relationship and it isn't protected under the prenup, then guess what? I sucked in a breath. It's fair game. I walked out of the office with my heart pounding. My fingers twitched to grab my phone and call Ethan, to demand an explanation, to throw his deception in his face. But I didn't, because Ethan had played the long game. And now, so would I. That night, I made dinner like nothing had changed. A warm, home-cooked meal, just like he liked. I kissed him on the cheek when he walked in. I smiled at his jokes. I played the part of the loving, clueless fiancé, but inside I was calculating, watching, waiting. How many other secrets had he kept from me? Because men like Ethan don't just make one backup plan, they make several. And if I was going to make sure he needed that savings account, I needed to know exactly how deep his deception ran. The next day, I started looking. Through old bank statements, through his emails, through the cracks in the life we had built together. The more I searched, the worse it got. It started small. A few inconsistencies here and there, bank deposits that didn't match his paychecks, expenses that didn't add up. At first, I thought maybe he was just bad with money. Maybe I was overreacting. But then, I found the emails. And I realized Ethan wasn't just planning for a future without me. He was planning one with someone else. It was a Saturday morning when I finally found it. Ethan had left his laptop open on the kitchen counter while he was in the shower. I told myself I wouldn't snoop, that I had already found enough. But when I walked past and saw his inbox open, a single subject line stopped me cold. Looking forward to seeing you again soon. I stood frozen. The sender's name was Rebecca. I had never heard of her. I clicked. My hands were shaking. The message was short. Too casual. Too familiar. Hey, babe, I can't stop thinking about last weekend. I know we said we'd keep things slow, but it's getting harder to wait. A response from Ethan sat just below it. Me too, gorgeous. Just be patient a little longer. Things are almost in place. Almost in place. My stomach twisted. My head buzzed with white noise. I scrolled further, my breath catching with each new piece of evidence. Hotel bookings under his name. Dinner reservations on nights he'd told me he was working late. Payments to a jewelry store. I felt sick. Ethan wasn't just saving money to protect himself. He was preparing to replace me. I barely remember the next few hours. I went through every account, every statement, every digital breadcrumb he had left behind. And what I found made my blood turn to ice. The secret savings account? Not just for him. He was funneling money to her. The prenup? Not just for precaution. He was making sure I walked away with nothing. The engagement ring on my finger? Probably a placeholder until he could make a cleaner break. And the biggest betrayal of all? A lease agreement, signed by Ethan, for a condo, with Rebecca. He had planned everything. The wedding, the honeymoon, the fake future with me. All of it was a stall. Because the moment things were in place, he was going to leave me. That night, I lay in bed next to him, staring at the ceiling, feeling like a stranger in my own life. I had given this man 7 years. My trust, my love, my everything. And in return, he had built an escape route. I could have confronted him right then. I could have thrown my ring in his face, screamed, demanded answers. But that would have given him control. And if Ethan thought he was going to walk away from this untouched, he had another thing coming. Because now I wasn't just going to make sure he needed that secret account. I was going to make sure it was all he had left. Ethan thought he had everything under control. He thought I was clueless, that I would continue planning our wedding while he planned his escape, that I would never question the prenup or find his hidden life. He was wrong, and now I was going to make sure he regretted underestimating me. I spent the next week doing something I never thought I'd do, pretending. I played my role flawlessly, the devoted fiancé, excited for the wedding. I kissed him goodbye in the mornings. I laughed at his jokes. I let him believe I was still in the dark. But the moment he left for work, I was in action. First, I visited a forensic accountant, someone my lawyer had recommended. I handed over the bank statements, the hidden account details, and everything I had found on his secret payments to Rebecca. "Can you track where the money is coming from?" I asked. The accountant nodded. "Absolutely. If he's been moving assets around in preparation for leaving you, we'll find it." Ethan thought he was covering his tracks, but what he didn't know was that I was already a step ahead. Next, I went to Rebecca's new condo. I wasn't reckless. I didn't go inside, didn't knock on the door. Instead, I waited. And sure enough, she arrived. She was exactly what I expected. Pretty, young, naive. The type of woman who believed in sweet nothings and stolen glances, who thought that the man cheating on his fiancée would never do the same to her. She walked inside, oblivious. And I smiled. Because if she thought she had won, she hadn't seen anything yet. That night, I set my trap. After dinner, I poured Ethan a glass of wine, his favorite. I let him relax, unwind. And then, casually, I said, "I was thinking, maybe we should move some of our savings into a joint account. You know, to prepare for the wedding." I watched his reaction carefully. His grip tightened around the glass for just a second. A flicker of hesitation in his eyes, but he recovered quickly. "That's sweet, babe," he said smoothly. "But let's keep things the way they are, just in case." There it was again, just in case. I tilted my head, pretending to be curious. "In case of what?" He smiled, the same smile that had once made me trust him. "Oh, you know, life happens." Life happens. I fought the urge to laugh in his face, because he thought he was feeding me a lie. But in reality, he had just confirmed everything. The next morning, I called my lawyer. "Proceed with everything," I said. "Are you sure?" he asked. I had never been more sure of anything in my life, because Ethan didn't just betray me. He prepared for it. And now, I was preparing too. Ethan had no idea his perfect plan was falling apart. While he was busy sneaking around with Rebecca, preparing to leave me with nothing, I was pulling every string behind the scenes. And soon, his carefully built backup plan was going to be all he had left. The day everything started crumbling for him began like any other. Ethan kissed my cheek before leaving for work, oblivious to the fact that by sunset, his entire world would come crashing down. I waited for the door to shut, counted to 10, then grabbed my phone. First call? My lawyer. "It's time," I said simply. He didn't need further instructions. We had already set everything in motion. At noon, I arrived at our bank. The teller greeted me warmly. She recognized me. After all, I had handled our finances for years. "How can I help you today?" I slid a document across the counter. "I need to make some changes to our accounts." She glanced at the paperwork and froze. I could see the flicker of recognition in her eyes. She understood exactly what was happening. Divorce filings, asset separation. Ethan wouldn't know it yet, but as of this moment, our joint accounts were frozen. He wouldn't be able to move a single cent. Not to Rebecca, not to his hidden savings, not anywhere. I smiled politely. "And while we're at it, I'd like to remove Ethan Harrison as an authorized user on our credit cards." Step 2, the lease for Rebecca's condo. My lawyer had filed an official inquiry regarding Ethan's finances, including the undisclosed payments to her apartment. That alone wouldn't have been enough to destroy him. But the kicker? Ethan had used company funds for some of their little getaways. And that? That was corporate fraud. By the time he realized I was one step ahead, it was already too late. At exactly 3:45 p.m., I got the call. My forensic accountant's voice practically hummed with satisfaction. We found it. The money. Turns out Ethan wasn't just saving for himself. He had been funneling company funds into that secret account, disguising them as business expenses. Illegal. Traceable. And now? Reported. By the time Ethan got home that evening, I was already packed. I sat in the living room, calmly sipping wine, watching as he walked in. Briefcase in hand, completely unaware that his life had just been set on fire. He smiled at me like everything was normal. Hey, babe. I set my glass down. Hey, Ethan. How was work? The moment he dropped his keys on the counter, his phone buzzed. Once, twice, again. I watched his face as he pulled it out and read the messages. I knew the first text was from his bank. Your account has been frozen due to an official investigation. Please contact customer service. The second? From his employer. Please report to HR immediately regarding financial discrepancies. Failure to respond will result in immediate termination. And the third? From Rebecca. Ethan, what the hell is going on? I just got a notice that the lease isn't getting paid. You said you had it covered. Call me now. I watched the blood drain from his face. Slowly, he looked up at me. Lori? I smiled. The same fake, sweet smile he had given me so many times. Something wrong? He swallowed hard. What did you do? I tilted my head. Me? Oh, nothing much. I stood, grabbed my overnight bag, and walked toward the door. You know, Ethan, I said, pausing with my hand on the handle. I used to wonder why you needed a backup plan. I turned to look at him, his face twisted in shock, in pure panic. And now? I guess I finally understand. I stepped outside, closing the door softly behind me. Leaving him alone in the house we once shared, with nothing but the mess he had created. Ethan had spent years preparing for a life without me. But now, he was truly alone. His career? Ruined. His money? Gone. His future with Rebecca? Crumbling. And as for me? I was about to start the best chapter of my life. I thought Ethan would call, beg, try to explain. But instead, he did what all cowards do. He ran. In the days after I walked out, everything unraveled for him. His bank accounts? Frozen. His job? Gone. His reputation? Destroyed. I didn't need to hear it from him. I heard it through everyone else. His company didn't just fire him. They pressed charges. The forensic audit uncovered thousands in stolen funds. The same money he had been funneling into his secret account. Rebecca? She bailed the second she realized Ethan was broke. She didn't even wait for him to explain. One moment, she was his future. The next, she had blocked his number. 3 weeks later, I was sitting in my lawyer's office when he handed me the final piece of Ethan's downfall. The lawsuit is official, Carver said, sliding a document across the table. His former employer is demanding full restitution. I raised an eyebrow. How much? $150,000. I laughed. Ethan's backup plan? It wasn't just all he had left. It wasn't even his anymore. The court seized the entire account to repay his debt. All his scheming, all his lies? They had led him straight into financial ruin. And me? I was finally free. I moved into my new apartment that weekend. A place I chose. I paid for. No shadows of Ethan. No reminders of betrayal. For the first time in years, I felt light. No more pretending. No more waiting for the other shoe to drop. Just me, my future, and a clean slate. A month later, I ran into Ethan's sister. She looked at me carefully before saying, "You know, he told us you just up and left. That you abandoned him in his worst moment." I snorted. Of course he did. She hesitated, then sighed. But then we found out what he did. The secret account. Rebecca, I said nothing. She shook her head, almost pitying. He's living with our parents now. No job, no savings. Mom and Dad aren't happy about it, but... She trailed off. But he's their son, I finished for her. She nodded. I smiled, feeling something unexpected. Indifference. Ethan wasn't my problem anymore. And the best part? He had done it to himself. That night, as I curled up with a book and a glass of wine, my phone buzzed. An unknown number. I didn't have to check. I already knew who it was. Ethan. I let it ring. Then I blocked the number. The past belonged in the past. And I was already living the best revenge. A life without him.
The text came late at night. Sweetheart, we need to talk about the trip. We've decided to postpone it until next year. I blinked at the message, my heart sinking. Postponed? We'd been planning this trip for months, our first family vacation in years. I'd rearranged my work schedule, budgeted every penny, and counted down the days like a kid waiting for Christmas. I called my mom immediately. She sighed as she answered, Alyssa, I know you're disappointed, but things are just tight right now. We can't afford it. I swallowed hard. I understood money struggles. I really did. I had been working extra shifts at the cafe just to pitch in for this trip, even offering to cover my own airfare. But something about the way she said it, like the decision had already been made, like my feelings didn't matter, felt like a slap in the face. I took a breath. If it's about money, maybe we can find a cheaper hotel or shorten the trip. She hesitated, just for a second, but I heard it. Alyssa, she said gently, it's just not the right time. We'll make it happen next year, I promise. A promise. One I should have known better than to believe. 2 days later, I was scrolling through Facebook on my lunch break when my stomach dropped. There it was. A picture of my mom and dad, on a beach. My heart pounded as I stared at the screen. Sun-kissed skin, drinks in their hands, the ocean stretching behind them, glistening under the afternoon sun. I swallowed hard and scrolled down. More photos. My brother Jake posing with his girlfriend on a boat. My parents at a seafood restaurant, smiling over plates of lobster. And then the caption that made my blood run cold. Family time is priceless. Family time. Except I wasn't there. Because according to them, the trip had been postponed. I locked my phone and sat frozen at the cafe counter, my mind racing. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. Maybe it was a last-minute work thing. Maybe someone had gifted them the trip. But deep down, I knew the truth. They hadn't postponed anything. They had just decided that I wasn't part of it. That night, I didn't call my mom. I didn't respond to the post. Instead, I watched in silence as more photos poured in over the next few days. They went snorkeling. They had bonfires on the beach. They made memories. Without me. And as I stared at each picture, something inside me shifted. This wasn't just about the trip. This was about all the times I had been the afterthought. All the birthdays they had forgotten. All the holidays where my gifts were an afterthought while Jake got exactly what he wanted. All the times I made sacrifices for them, but they never did the same for me. I clenched my jaw and took a deep breath. They thought I would be too hurt to say anything, that I would just let it go. But this time, I was done being the forgotten one. They didn't know I had seen the photos, so when they got home a week later, I was waiting for them, and I had a plan. I heard the taxi pull into the driveway and watched from the kitchen window as my mom, dad, and Jake stepped out, dragging their suitcases behind them. They looked tired but happy, sun-kissed from their postponed trip. I clenched my jaw, forcing myself to stay calm. They didn't know I had seen the photos. Not yet. The front door swung open, and my mom was the first to spot me. "Alyssa," she said, her voice overly bright. Oh, sweetheart, I missed you. How have you been? I folded my arms. Busy, I said flatly. My dad walked in behind her, setting his bags down. That's good. How's work? I let out a short, bitter laugh. Work. That was all I had done. Work and scroll through their pictures while pretending I didn't exist to them. Jake yawned, stretching his arms. Man, I'm exhausted. Traveling takes it out of you. He turned to me with a smirk. Hope you held down the fort while we were gone. My eyes snapped to him. While we were gone. Like it was normal. Like nothing was wrong. Like I hadn't spent the last week replaying their betrayal over and over. I took a deep breath. No more pretending. I turned to my mom, my voice eerily calm. So, how was the trip? She blinked, hesitating. Oh, well, we just needed a little getaway. Nothing too special. Liar. I pulled out my phone, unlocked it, and turned the screen toward them. The photo album, the beach selfie, the boat ride, the fancy dinner, and the caption that made my stomach turn all over again. Family time is priceless. I tilted my head. Looks special to me. Silence. Thick, heavy silence. Then, my mom let out a nervous laugh. Alyssa, Don't. My voice was sharp, cold. Just don't. My dad cleared his throat. Look, sweetheart, it wasn't. Stop, I said, my voice rising. Just tell me the truth. You never postponed the trip. You just didn't want me there. I saw the guilt flash across my mom's face, but she quickly masked it with a weak excuse. It wasn't like that, honey. We just thought, what? That I wouldn't notice? I snapped. That I wouldn't see the pictures? That I'd be stupid enough to believe your lie? Jake groaned, rolling his eyes. Oh my God, Alyssa. Are you seriously making this a big deal? It was just a trip. Just a trip. The words hit me like a slap. That I planned. That I saved up for. That I was supposed to be a part of. I shook my head. You could have told me the truth, but instead, you lied. You made me feel like I wasn't worth bringing. Jake scoffed. You're being dramatic. I let out a bitter laugh. No, Jake, I'm finally being honest. My mom stepped forward, reaching for my hand. Alyssa, please. I pulled away. Number not this time. They needed to hear this. This isn't just about the trip. It's about every single time I've been treated like I don't matter. Every holiday where Jake got exactly what he wanted, and I got whatever was convenient. Every time I put you guys first and you didn't even notice. I swallowed, my voice shaking. I thought if I worked hard enough, if I gave enough, I'd finally be enough for you. But I never was I? No one said a word. Finally, my mom sighed. Alyssa, it's not like we love Jake more than you. I let out a small, bitter smile. Maybe you don't, but it sure feels that way. Another silence. And that was my answer. I nodded, exhaling sharply. Got it. Then, without another word, I grabbed my purse and walked toward the door. Alyssa, where are you going? My dad called. I didn't look back. Somewhere I'm actually wanted. And then I left. For the first time in my life, I put myself first. For days, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing with messages from them, but I was done fixing things. This time, they could figure it out without me. I didn't answer their calls. I didn't respond to their messages. And for the first time in my life, I wasn't rushing to fix things. It was strange at first, ignoring them. The guilt crept in like an old habit, whispering in the back of my mind. Maybe you're overreacting. Maybe you should just let it go. But then I would remember. The text saying the trip was postponed. The Facebook posts of them having fun without me. The lie they told without a second thought. And suddenly, the silence felt like freedom. By the fifth day, their messages had shifted. At first, they had been firm and dismissive, trying to regain control of the situation. Mom, Alyssa, we need to talk about this. You're making this into a bigger deal than it needs to be. Dad, ignoring us isn't going to change anything. Call your mother. Jake, Jesus, Alyssa, get over it. You're acting like a child. I rolled my eyes. Classic. They weren't sorry. They just wanted me to stop making them uncomfortable. But when I didn't answer, the tone of their messages shifted. Mom. Sweetheart, please. We miss you. We never meant to hurt you. Dad. We should have handled things differently. Let's talk. And then, the one that nearly got me. Mom. Alyssa, I feel awful. I can't sleep knowing you're upset with us. For a brief moment, I almost responded. Almost. But then I asked myself a question. If I had never seen the photos, would they have ever told me the truth? Would they have ever felt guilty at all? The answer was painfully clear. So I locked my phone and let the silence continue. It wasn't easy. I had spent years being the one to reach out first, the one who smoothed things over, the one who made excuses for them. So sitting with the silence, holding my boundary, felt unnatural at first. But as the days passed, I realized something. They weren't reaching out because they missed me. They were reaching out because they missed the role I played in their lives. The fixer, the peacekeeper, the afterthought who never made waves. And now that I was refusing to be that person, they didn't know what to do. A week after their return, I did something I had never done before. I booked a weekend trip for myself. Nothing extravagant, just a quiet cabin in the mountains, far away from everything. I packed a bag, grabbed my keys, and left, without telling anyone where I was going. For once, I wasn't asking for permission. I wasn't waiting to be included. I was just living for myself, and it felt amazing. By the time I got back, my phone was full of missed calls and texts, but I didn't rush to respond. I wasn't ready yet, because for the first time in my life, I was finally putting myself first, and I wanted to enjoy the feeling a little longer. They weren't used to me ignoring them, so when my silence lasted longer than they expected, they showed up at my door, and I was ready. I knew it was coming. The moment I ignored their calls, their messages, their guilt trips, I knew my parents wouldn't just let it go. So when I heard the knock on my door that Saturday afternoon, I wasn't surprised. I took a deep breath, setting down my coffee. My hands weren't shaking. My heart wasn't racing. I was ready. I opened the door to find my mom and dad standing on my porch. They looked different. Not angry, not smug, not demanding. They looked nervous. Alyssa, my mom said softly, tucking her purse under her arm. Can we come in? I leaned against the doorframe. Depends, I said evenly. Are you here to actually listen, or just to tell me why I'm wrong for being upset? My dad sighed. We're here to talk, really talk. I studied their faces. They weren't ordering me to let them in. They weren't dismissing my feelings like they had in their messages. They were asking. That was new. I stepped aside. Fine, I said. Come in. I led them into the living room. The air felt thick with things unsaid. My mom sat on the couch, hands folded in her lap. My dad stayed standing, like he wasn't sure if he belonged. I sat across from them, arms crossed, waiting. It was my mom who finally spoke first. I don't know where to start, she admitted. The truth is a good place, I said flatly. She flinched. My dad exhaled through his nose. We messed up. I blinked. I hadn't expected him to say that. My mom looked down at her hands. Alyssa, when we said the trip was postponed, it was a lie. No excuses, no dancing around it, just the truth. I swallowed, my throat tight. Why? She hesitated, then finally said, We thought it would be easier. Easier. Just like she had texted me. I clenched my jaw. Easier for who? Silence. For you? I pressed. For Jake? I let out a bitter laugh. Because it sure as hell wasn't easier for me. My dad ran a hand over his face. We didn't think it would hurt you this much, I scoffed. You didn't think at all. My mom's voice cracked. We thought you'd understand. Understand. The same word they had used in their messages. The word that meant nothing. I leaned forward. Tell me the truth. If I hadn't seen those pictures, would you have ever told me? Neither of them spoke. That was my answer. I swallowed the lump in my throat and forced my voice to stay steady. Do you have any idea what that felt like? To see you all having fun without me? To know that I was never even considered? My mom's eyes shimmered with guilt. Alyssa, we love you. I shook my head. You don't treat people you love like that. My dad sighed, rubbing the back of his neck. We failed you, sweetheart. We should have been honest. I stared at him, then at my mom. Why are you really here? I asked. To apologize? Or to make yourselves feel better? They hesitated. Then my mom said, both. At least that was honest. We sat in silence for a long time. Finally, my mom said, I don't know how to fix this. I exhaled slowly, feeling the weight of all the years of being second place. And I realized something. I didn't need them to fix it. I just needed them to understand it would never be the same. I don't know either, I admitted. But I do know this. I'm not going to be the one to fix it for you. My dad nodded, slow and understanding. My mom wiped at her eyes. What do we do now? I met her gaze. That's up to you. They thought an apology would be enough. But apologies don't erase years of being treated like an afterthought. This time, they had to prove they were willing to change. Apologies were easy. Change? That was the hard part. After my parents left that day, I didn't feel relieved. I didn't feel like anything had really been fixed. They had admitted their mistake. They had apologized. But I had heard apologies before. It was their actions that had always told a different story. And this time, I wasn't interested in words. I wanted proof. For the first time in my life, I didn't go out of my way to reach out first. I didn't text them good morning. I didn't send updates about my life. I didn't check in to see if they needed anything. For the first time, I made them do the work. And at first, nothing happened. Days passed, then a week, then two, and I thought, there it is. That's the proof I needed. If I wasn't the one putting in the effort, there was no effort at all. I should have known. I should have expected it. But somehow, it still hurt. It wasn't until the third week that things started to shift. It was a random Tuesday when my mom called. I let it go to voicemail. Then came a text. Mom. Hey, sweetheart. Just thinking about you. Hope you're doing okay. A part of me wanted to ignore it, to keep the distance. But another part of me, the part that had been waiting for any sign that they actually cared, hesitated. I didn't reply right away. Instead, I waited. The next day, my dad texted too. Dad, miss you, kid. Let's get dinner sometime. I stared at the message, emotions colliding inside me. Not because I was ready to let them back in, but because for the first time, they were trying. I agreed to dinner. Not because everything was forgiven. Not because I was ready to pretend like nothing had happened, but because I needed to see if they were serious. We met at a quiet restaurant. Just the three of us. Jake wasn't there. And that alone told me they had been paying attention. We sat down, and for the first time in years, my parents asked me about me. Not about Jake, not about work, not about whether I could help them with something. Just me. I wasn't sure if it was genuine, or if they were just trying to fix what was broken, but for the first time, they were actually listening. And that was new. Halfway through dinner, my mom cleared her throat. We've been thinking a lot about what you said, she said carefully, about how we've treated you. I took a sip of my water, staying silent. She continued. And we've realized that we've always assumed you didn't need us the way Jake did, that because you were strong and independent, we didn't have to put in as much effort. I met her gaze. And now? She swallowed. And now we know that was wrong. I glanced at my dad. He nodded. We see it now, Alyssa. We do. For a moment, I didn't know what to say, because those were the words I had been waiting for my whole life. And yet, part of me still didn't believe them. Not yet. By the time dinner ended, something had shifted. Not in a dramatic, everything is fixed way, but in a, maybe this time they actually mean it way. They still had a long way to go. But for once, they were the ones taking the first steps. And for now, that was enough. But words were still just words. And if they really wanted to fix things, They were going to have to prove it. Dinner had gone better than I expected, but I wasn't naive. I knew that one meal, one conversation, wasn't enough to undo years of being treated like an afterthought. I wasn't looking for a quick fix. I wasn't looking for another empty apology. If my parents truly wanted to change, they had to prove it. The first real test came a week later. It was my birthday. And if history had taught me anything, it was that birthdays in our family had never been fair. Jake's birthdays were always a big deal. Parties, gifts, dinner reservations at whatever fancy restaurant he wanted. Mine? A card. Maybe a phone call, if they remembered. So I told myself I wouldn't expect anything this year. I told myself I wouldn't care. And yet, when I woke up that morning, there was still a small part of me, the part that still wanted to believe they could change, that hoped. And this time, they didn't forget. At exactly 10 a.m., there was a knock on my door. I frowned, setting down my coffee. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, I saw my mom and dad standing there, holding a cake. My breath caught. They had never done this before. "Happy birthday, sweetheart," my mom said, offering me a tentative smile. I blinked at them. "You remembered?" My dad let out a small chuckle. "Of course we did." And for once, I believed them. They didn't just drop off the cake and leave. They actually spent the day with me. We didn't do anything extravagant, just a quiet afternoon at my place, talking, catching up, eating cake that was a little too sweet, but still perfect because it was mine. There were no rushed goodbyes. No feeling like I was just an obligation. For the first time in a long time, it felt like they wanted to be there. And I didn't realize how much I had needed that until it actually happened. A few weeks later, they proved it again. I had a big presentation at work, something I had been nervous about for weeks. I had mentioned it briefly over dinner one night, not thinking much of it. But when the day came, I got a text from my mom. "Mom, thinking of you today. You're going to do great." And then one from my dad. "Dad, let us know how it goes, kiddo. Proud of you no matter what." I stared at my phone for a long moment. They had never done this before. I wasn't used to them remembering the little things. And yet, here they were. Trying. It wasn't perfect. There were still moments where old habits crept back in. Mom still occasionally defaulted to making excuses for Jake. Dad still struggled to express himself in more than a few words. But the difference? They caught themselves. They noticed when they messed up. And they tried to do better. And that mattered. One night, a few months later, my mom called me. Not for anything in particular, just to talk. And at some point in the conversation, she sighed. "I know it's going to take time," she said carefully, "for you to trust us again." I swallowed. "Yeah." A pause. Then, "We're not giving up, Alyssa. You're too important to us." I felt my throat tighten, because for the first time, I believed her. But for the first time in my life, I finally felt like I mattered. Change didn't happen overnight. There were still moments when I caught myself waiting for the other shoe to drop, for my parents to slide back into their old habits, for them to forget, to stop trying. But weeks passed, then months. And they kept showing up. It wasn't perfect. It wasn't effortless. But for the first time in my life, I finally felt like I mattered. One evening, I was sitting on my back porch, sipping tea, when my phone buzzed. It was Mom. Not an apology, not a guilt trip, just a simple text. "Mom, thinking of you. How's your week going?" I stared at the screen, something warm settling in my chest, because that message wouldn't have existed a year ago. A few weeks later, I got another surprise. I had been saving for a trip, a solo vacation, just for me. I hadn't told my family much about it, mostly because I didn't want to deal with their opinions. But then, one night at dinner, my dad asked, "So when's your trip?" I blinked. "You remember?" He smirked. "Of course. It's Italy, right?" My mom nodded. "We were actually talking about it the other day. Do you need help with anything? Packing? Planning?" I studied them carefully, waiting for some catch. But there wasn't one. They weren't offering because they wanted something in return. They were offering because they wanted to be part of my life. And that? That was new. The night before my flight, I got a text from Jake. I almost didn't open it, but curiosity won. Jake, Mom won't say it, but she's freaking out about you traveling alone. You know how she is. I rolled my eyes. Typical. Then another message came through. Jake, you're actually doing it, huh? Living your life on your own terms. I hesitated before replying. Me. Yeah, I am. There was a long pause before his final message arrived. Jake, that's kinda badass, sis. As I stepped off the plane in Rome, the weight of the last year settled on me. I had spent so much of my life waiting for my parents to see me, waiting for them to include me, waiting for the day when I wouldn't feel like an afterthought. But I wasn't waiting anymore. I was choosing myself. I had built a life where I didn't have to chase their approval. And somehow, in doing that, they had finally learned how to show up for me. A few days into my trip, I was sitting at a cafe when my phone buzzed. A group message. Mom, we just saw your latest photos. Rome looks amazing. Call us soon? We miss you. I smiled. Not because I needed their approval, but because, for the first time, they weren't just saying the words, they meant them. And for the first time in my life, that was enough. You shouldn't have to beg for love. You shouldn't have to fight to be included. And if the people around you don't see your worth, choose yourself. Because sometimes when you stop waiting to be seen, that's when they finally notice.